But Paul, is in a way, like, let's talk about investment. Let's talk about, because we know that all along there's been a two linear processes, right? Involved, like which Rainy Group came up with together with the glazers, Joel and Abram, to say, like, we're looking for strategic investments. Let's see what that was in November, right? So it's been a little bit of a confusion, but we all know that it's been two processes. Basically, we understand that the glazers want to stay at all cost and price, but they have maximized all the resources and the leverage and the credits. We've seen the financial report, and they've been holding on to the last minute and up to today, according to my opinion, to see if there is a way out they can stay, right? And on the other hand, we also know that there's been at least three serious bidders that's been going in, and one of them now going to touch base on has actually dropped out. So what we're seeing today is a lot of people saying about this, oh, there's a third bid, there's a deadline on Friday. We all know about these deadlines on Friday. Where is this coming from? Is this been deliberately planted out from the club to the press, or is it something that you think that the media is coming up? Because in a bidding process, you have a linear timeline, you have a project timeline, and just before, like, the Ramadan, Sheikh Jasim said, like, hey, here's a second bid. So Jim Rattcife said, here's a second bid. We also spoken to Thomas Siliakos. Thomas, if you do watching, I do apologize, but you've been a great advocate to sort of push it further. But I don't believe there was never a bid from Thomas Siliakos anyway. But it was a great initiative, right? So for me today, I mean, I'm asking you, like, do you think that there is a third bidding, or the third bidding is actually the final due diligence, or, where people are trading money, there's lawyers involved, the contracts involved, checking under the hood before the letter of intent?
Well, this is where a lot of people get this process wrong, in a sense of this process is not a linear process. This process is a bilinear process. You can have different bidders in different areas of this bid. Right now, there could be somebody that is coming up with an indicative, has done an indicative bid, and coming up to April, pardon me, sorry, or coming
No,
up
it's
with
okay.
coming up with their first proper bid. So what you would conflate to Sheikh Jasim and Sir Jim's second bid, they're only at that stage. So they've only just done their first due diligence, and they're coming up with their first proper bid. In contrast to that, what you can have, and is what a lot of people I've talked to and a lot of people that we've been talking to, is you could have a situation right now where you have a preferred bidder, but that preferred bidder cannot complete a deal inside an exclusivity period. Because once you go into that exclusivity period, people can't request information from the clubs, other bidders can't submit bids, and they can't do any more due diligence work once you go into an exclusivity period. But if the bidder that you want to be in an exclusivity period cannot technically, legally, or for any other reason sign a deal in that period, there's no point of having it. So what we believe is going on, and talking to quite a few different people in finance, what we believe is, at the moment, we believe the Sheikh Jasim bid is actually on a higher level than the other bids. So they're talking to more representation, getting a figure together that would be a final offer, a bid that would be accepted, to do then a small exclusivity period afterwards. Because as you've talked to, what I've learned in the last couple of weeks, if you talk to anybody that works, does any type of business in Qatar, and I even retweeted a thing about it the other day, is there's no business now done until after the 28th. Banks can't operate. They can't okay transfers of money. They can't okay transfers of funds. Lawyers can't sign deals. And the country basically comes to a standstill for this period. So there's no way.
Football operation doesn't stand still just because of the sales process. I mean, this planning has been way going ahead since January, so they keep going on, right? Which is kind of like, oh, I owe you letter, you can conduct this business because Bank of America owns the credit, right? That's just going to be added on top of the sales price, isn't it? Or
yeah. I just don't think you're going to hear anything of real any substance after the 28th. There's not going to be nothing that comes out until them guys are ready in certain areas. Also, if you go back to the Financial Times reports, they didn't report. They reported that the bidders are being put under pressure to show they can complete a deal, and everybody panicked and thought that was about money. But they don't mention money. What they're talking about is the Rain Group had doubts that certain bidders couldn't finish a deal if they had an acceptable deal on the table. What does that tell you? They wanted it done quickly. An acceptable deal's on the table, but if you can't sign that deal, then when can you sign that deal?
Okay.
There's stuff going on in the background. This 3-week period for a bird bid is just ridiculous as well.
It's ridiculous. There's a lot of rumblings. I mean, in my experience in the financial world and stuff that I've been talking to, it's clear and obvious that the Sheikh Jasim bid went in, and it was confirmed that they went 200% over valuation, and it's for 100% sale of Manchester United. We're talking about an excess in about 7.2 billion US dollars. That's 200% over valuation, and this has been validated from a very credible source high up in the QIA, Qatar investment authorities in Qatar. I can't mention any names, but knowing what we know, there's certain things that we do receive, certain things that we don't receive, and they're quite confident, and they made it done before the Qatar, and they're overseeing everything, so making sure that that's why they're confident, because they know that this bid is substantial enough for the Glazers to walk away. We know that they was asking for £6 billion. This is way too much anyway, because realistically, Paul, the valuation of the club is not more than 4 billion, and this is what.
And you're not taking the debt into account of that as well, and that 4 billion.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that wasn't coming out in the ether as well, because we talked about earlier. There was a preferred bidder that put a bid in place 1st of November. And there was another Middle Eastern country. I mean, I'm not going to mention, but everyone knows it's the ICD in Dubai. They had a first refusal right as well, and they didn't want to go over because they didn't think that it's not worth that much. So they were asked also that this is part of the delay as well, because they was asked if they wanted to continue to bid up higher, and they said no, we're not interested. So they let it go. I don't know much about Sir Ineos. I'm sorry, I'm calling Sir Ineos. But in terms of the overall investment, I mean, it does not make sense. Like, they're talking about in 10 years that the club will be evaluated over, 10 billion, right? So, yeah, it is massive things going on probably behind the scenes that we consumers don't know the future of the sport. But if you look
you mentioned that 10 billion figure. I want to jump in on that. What Michael Alden was saying about how the Glazers, and when we're talking about the Glazers, what we have to remember is there's two sets of Glazers. There's the Glazer brothers that want to run Manchester United, and there's the four Glazers that don't really care about Man United and care about money. But in the sense of, they say the club value in the next 10 years is going to be £10 billion, blah, blah, black sheep. Who's going to get to pay £10 billion for Manchester United? They can't even get anybody to pay £6 at the moment, but they're saying they're overvaluing the company by double, but they said we will double that again in 10 years. But who are you going to get to buy it in 10 years for £10 billion? Even if you manage to convince an investment company to come on board now, that would have to spend probably 2 to 3 billion, so half of the valuation that Glazer says. That means that minority company, for them to make a profit, will have to double their investment in 10 years. In a football club, I don't think so.
No, I mean, whoever invests wants a return on investment, clear and obvious. Like, United won't make enough money in terms to pay the dividends to the Glazers and investors, right? So if the Glazers believe that the United will be worth 10 billion, they wouldn't be asking for 6 billion in that case. Like, because at the end of the day, Joel and Avram, we all know that they own about 23%. 32. Yeah. But the other
32%. Sorry, I got that wrong. It's 32% of voting rights. It's like 20% of the actual company itself.
It's about 23% of United in terms of what the two brothers want to do. So they are the ones that always wanted to sort of keep hold on United and hoping. That's why I've been saying they've been running this linear process or non-linear process, but two bidding process, look at strategic investments like a full sale, and looking to ways that how can we stay on, of course, 100%. But it all comes down to that. Yeah. Point number 2, Paul, as well. Minority investors, as far as my understanding, often comes in at the end of a bidding process to back whoever they're bidding winning bid is because they want a piece of the pie. Like they want to offer financial support. Do you need help to buy out the remaining shares, like Bank of
A
America
consortium.
and consortium kind of thing? Yeah. So it's highly unrealistic in this point, as we are here to unpack everything. We're calling a spade as usual, to say that there will not be, I mean, have no fear, there will be a sales. This is $1 billion we're talking about, billions of pounds transactions, right? It's quite normal, it takes time. So if you look at my pie chart, right, I'm going to add this to the stream. Okay, I argue to the point that we are in the third stage, right? But we're already passing the corporate due diligence, and everyone's talking about the due diligence process, right? But this also comes in a way that you have to also declare your shadow directors, like who's going to be part of the declaration to UEFA, FIFA, to Premier League, to the government. So this is quite relative easy process. But the reason for that silence between in the two weeks ago wasn't it? It's because there's been a lot of paperwork flying back and forth. Hey, how about this clause? How about that clause? Because it's such a huge transaction, right?
Yeah,
And this
it's
is where
such a huge.
yeah,
I'm going to put my conspiracy hat on here because I can't really explain my train of thought why without explaining what I think has actually happened with this third round of bidding, as everybody's calling it. First of all, third round of bidding makes no sense in a 3-week period.
Nope.
Because after the first and the initial due diligence was taking place at Old Trafford, they were given a week to set up their first proper valued bid. That's their first serious bid. Now they're given 3 weeks. So if you want to know what I think is going on, is basically they have a preferred bidder, which is Sheikh Jasim. Sheikh Jasim then has informed the Reen Group and the Glazer representation that because the process has gone on this long, we cannot actually officially get a deal signed off after the end of Eid. So if you go along then with what the what the Football Times has said, or not the Football Times, sorry, the Financial Times has said, is the Glazers want this deal done quickly. They need it done before the end of the financial year due to other debt reasons and everything. So what the Reen Group, I think, have done, and this is coming from other financial people, is the Reen Group has gone, okay, Sheikh Jasim will take his people. He will go and he will discuss with the Glazers and see if they can thrash out a deal with the Glazer representation. And if they come up with a good figure and they submit that on the 28th, after that we'll have a small period of exclusivity where we can dot the T's and cross the T's, dot the I's. But in the meantime, to keep the process moving at a faster pace, because if they can't create a good deal with the Glazers, what they've said to the other bidders is, you do the final due diligence this week, where you give us all your shadow directors, ask for any information, basically the stuff that you would do in the exclusivity period, then go and create a final bid. So in worst case scenario, we don't get a deal with Qatar. That means we can go to the next bidder and it doesn't slow the process down. I'm telling you right now, and this is coming from people I've talked financially from Qatar, this is coming from financial people in London, if we didn't have Eid coming up, we would be in an exclusivity period with the Qatari 9-2 Foundation Group at the moment.
Yep.
That is the feeling they're getting.
Cross my heart is not a conspiracy, because it's the same information that I've been also getting from Qatar itself as well. That is exactly what's going on, because anyone that's fasting knows that nobody's working pretty much. You're only working 2-3 hours a day, and then
it's not even that there. You can't have an exclusivity period with a company if that company can't sign a deal inside that period, because that's how the 10-year process works. You have a timeline to not agree a deal, but to sign a deal in an exclusivity period. That is the legal definition. And it was the same with Todd Bowley. When he was in his time period, it was 2 weeks, and they had 2 weeks to thrash out a deal. They actually hit a little snag and a sticking point when it came to the currency converter, and Chelsea's value went from 2.5 billion down to 2.3 billion, and the deal was signed. You can't do that with Qatar because they can't officially sign anything, transfer money, get blessing from the Emir until the 30th of April. So
nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. I know. I lived in the region for 10 years. I know exactly.
So the Reen Group has decided to keep everything fair. Go, okay, you go talk to the Glazers representatives, come up with a deal. Everybody else, do your final due diligence. So if everything goes wrong, it means then they can go to another bidder. They've already done the final due diligence, so they're able then to table their bid straight away. And the next preferred bidder, be it Sir Jim, then can go into an exclusivity period. Believe me when I say, as I go back to it, because nobody paid attention, the Financial Times said both parties were under pressure to show once they agree a deal, how quickly can they complete the deal. So how quickly, Sir Jim, can you raise your capital because you have to go for your company? How quickly can you get that money together? How quickly can we sign this deal, get the docs in, and what's to get out?
Right.
When Sheikh Jasim, of course, it's okay, you've Eid coming up. When is the first available date that you could actually sign a deal? How quickly do you have the documentation all ready to go to pass the fit and proper test from the Premier League? Because that's the fear about the 9-2 Foundation. If they're talking about how quickly you can complete a deal, it means, and it says in my eyes, they've already got an idea of who the preferred bidder is.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. There's a mini exclusivity there already because, if Sheikh Jasim and his consortium, put, as I said, the evaluation is about what I understood from credible sources. They actually put in 200% over, right? Over the overall evaluation. So just to make sure that the deal is there, right? Going on, Ramadan break and everything in the, Eid and everything that's coming up. But what I was told is about $7.2 billion, right?
Which is just about 5.7 billion pounds.
In terms of these steps where we're saying, okay, we both agree that there has been some form of exclusivity and giving a leeway to say, okay, we understand you're the highest bidder. It's Ramadan. Go take your break. They made sure that they put a substantial bid in. So now
I don't even think it's taking a break. I think they know they can't finally agree in the deal, but they can do all the groundwork because the main people for the 9-2 Foundation are not involved in Ramadan. One of them is Shabazz, which is he's a British Pakistani. I want to say that he is, and Sheikh Jasim's personal advisor is from Lebanon, that American Lebanese, I think he is. So they could be doing the deal in the background, and then come the end of the
I mean, this is something that, just because it's Eid and everything, business operation doesn't stop. In my understanding that there are people in London working 24/7 on just, exchanging the information between Latham and Watkins, which is the legal representatives of Manchester United. Then, of course, you have the Rothschilds Bank, which is actually representing the
31%, isn't it?
Yeah, the shareholders. And then Rainy Group, of course, that is kind of the bridge between everything, like, making sure that the bids coming in, they're the kind of the communication bridge. But Paul, I just want to go into this one because this is my personal belief, and I've been covering this for quite a while, right? Barring that people are calling a third bid, it's not pretty much a third bid. It's pretty much we're coming to the contract and conclusion in a way, like, because we know it's not a linear process. They've been saying in media, okay, final bid in by Friday 28th. It's not the case, right? No. I know for a fact that there is some major financial meetings taking place today in London. Just to break it down for all of you, like, we mentioned, Latham and Watkins. They are actually Manchester United's PLC's solicitors and lawyers representing Manchester United PLC. And of course, there's Rothschilds Bank as well, which is representing the majority of the shareholders, right? Correct.
Do you want to explain basically when there's any type of financial deal going on, as the PLC, you have to nominate somebody to look after the interest of your public shareholders, because you can't have one consensus. It's not like one person owns that 31%. So they are there to basically be the guys that say, I want to put this kind of simple to people, but it doesn't work out simple. It is very complicated. But they would basically be there to say, if the Glazers have a minority investment deal on the table that's very, very risky and could flatline the company, but they also have a deal on the table that makes the shareholders a ton of money, the Rothschilds would be the people to go, hold on a second, you can't be doing that because you're not thinking about the shareholders' best interest.
True. 100%.
And that's what the Rothschilds' job is. They will evaluate all deals on the table and say, well, if you stay, and take a minority investment, our share price is going to plunge. You're going to put the club into more debt, and you're not looking after the shareholders' best interest. Legal challenges can come out of that.
True. I mean, basically, what I wanted to thank you for clarifying that again. You did it better than me, though. Thank you for pitching in, Paul. But what I'm trying to say that today I've been told by a credible source as well that there's massive meetings happening in Mayfair in London, where all the parties are involved. Which we mentioned the parties of Rothschilds, Latham and Watkins, Rain Group, and also the representatives from some of the Glazer families as well. So obviously there is some rumblings going on, according to sources credible, and we're not going to mention the sources, but that gives me an indication that they are now discussing everything, because we talked about asset deal or share deal, of course. We're talking about the bidding process. We are coming down to the exclusivity or the letter of intent, and they're kind of discussing the final details of the purchase agreement, and the earnout clause, especially the earnout clause. And that's what we're talking about. That's where you have everyone involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what we see is kind of the closing of transaction, signing and closing. And ain't going to take that long if you look at it, because we talked about Q1 financial fiscal year. Okay, we went over the time, but it's normal practice when you have such a large mergers or acquisitions, when you're talking of billions, to give a little bit of an extra leeway time to complete the transaction.
It's also when you're dealing with 6 individuals instead of one entity as well, it becomes a lot more difficult.
So for me, I can see this now going on an avalanche, right? Coming to end of. Don't panic. What I'm saying, I wouldn't panic. I'm chilled. I wouldn't panic, because I'm saying from now on it's going to go very fast, because the directors board test is probably been done and dusted and handed in, the shadow directors declaration and stuff like that.
They can hand all that information to the Premier League and have the Premier League give them a suggestion of, do you need any more information? But until they officially hand it in. But as I say, this 3-week period, they've added a week of due diligence into this 3-week period, and higher due diligence, as you say, where you're nominating your shadow directors, who you're going to be bringing into the board, have all these people being vetted, and all bidders are doing this as well. All 100%. Bidders are doing this due diligence. And this is very, very strange that they are doing this point, because usually you would only do that due diligence if you're in an exclusivity period. So what that suggests to me and other people is they are looking, this is a long period for reasons that I've discussed, but a lot of people don't want to a lot of journalists wouldn't pin it down to that reason, because it could stoke up a bit of tension, if you know what I mean, to say it's religious reasons why this process is slowed down, which in my eyes it is. It's reasons in the country,
But there's a reason. I would say, I was arguing to the point that there's a reason why you slow down, right? Because we're coming back to get to the due diligence process. It's such a huge transaction and so many people involved, legal representatives, there's massive contracts, there's finances, there's documents and questions flying back and forward between the different.
I'm just going to say this here. Once we hit after the 28th of April, if there's an acceptable deal on the table, this process from that point will be very, very quick. You're talking an exclusivity period, probably a week, not even a week. Because I think they're doing a lot of the work now. So when the exclusivity period has to start, you're talking Chelsea levels of quickness. Once you get to this point, maybe a week to 2 weeks exclusivity period doesn't mean they go into the 2 weeks. They could agree a deal within 4 days, and then all documents start to get submitted at that point. Them actually taking control of the company itself is a very quick procedure. It's literally, we sign over all our holdings, all our controlling stakes to Sheikh Jasim. He becomes number one shareholder. He takes control of everything to do with Manchester United PLC. That is actually a very quick process, believe it or not, compared to a lot of other ones.
It is.
How long would the fit and proper test take? How long can he be ready to get in there to start effecting changes? That would be the issue. But I don't think we're going to go anywhere beyond June with this.
There's nothing coming out from Ineos, so that means it's very quiet as well. Nothing coming out. So I'm starting.
They're waiting to get beat. They're waiting to get beat.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel seriously Qatari here. I've been keeping my powder dry, but I'm convinced. We're speaking to a lot of finance people, a lot of connections down in the Middle East, high people up in the QIA and stuff like that. So I'm convinced that this is going to be a Qatari bid, right? I don't see a Glazer staying on, and I'm not usual to put my, it's all 100% in. I'm not going to mention a figure, but I've been studying the linear process. I've been studying the finance. I've been speaking to you, to a lot of people. I see this as being 100% sell. It's just, within a couple
As I say, I never go 100% because anything can happen in business. It's worse than if you think things can happen badly in a transfer deal at the last second. In business, you could add about 50 million other reasons of things that could go wrong in the last minute.
It is going to be 100% sell, according to my opinion.
I think it will. Yeah. I think it will as well. And time will only tell, but I don't see them staying. I don't see how they financially stay, and I don't see how they get investment opportunities.
Thank you so much for stopping by and watching MUFC Realist TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on the socials.